Okay, so we'll continue on. Oops. Oh yeah, it's out. Okay. Oh no, it's not out. Turn on editing. We'll continue on with where we left off. So the file that we're working on. By the way, I did grade, so those of you again that submitted your web planning and persona assignment, you should see a grade and feedback for that. So again, if I didn't get that, please complete it and then let me know that it's submitted. But I think most of you, I probably did grade that. And so that is all done. In October 28th through November 3rd, we've got the file called 4 boxes, and we'll just continue working on that one. I'll grab my little sheet here. And then go into Dreamweaver, obviously. So last time, we created style nav, we'd already done. Style logo, we'd already done. So to make the header a little bit bigger, just a quick review again, because it looked funny once we right aligned that navigation, then this kind of spilled into other stuff. And we may change this, but I added a header tag. It's actually rewriting the header at a min width of 992 and above. So it's only affected when the screen is 992 and above. And I added a height of whatever my image was, approximately 160 pixels. And then other settings that we did. So in our Your Styles Global, we also added a box called First. And it happens to be, in my case, it's this little box right here, but you may have done some color or something. So we added padding around it. And the padding is spacing around the box itself. And if you go down there, I had a white color text. You might have a different color text. And again, we may change this as we continue. I right aligned the text. And again, I can, skinny it up and see what it looks like. I think right aligned with that particular image probably works better. I don't think I like where the text lands at this point because it's covering his head. I'd rather see his head than, other parts, I guess. So that will change. And then, of course, I've got the picture that I want on the screen. But you can, have a color. We picked a color there for a while. You could have a gradient color. The other thing we wanted to do is make sure that the background size is set to cover. And again, it says background size, it's hiding right now, but make sure it says cover. Okay, so we did that, and then we continued on. We also added just a .col, and again, these are all in global, so they affect phone size and above. We added .col, so a class for column, just to set the width at 100% for right now. Okay. The last thing we did, and we'll do some more of this with our other type, but for my heading 1, and your design ideas are totally different than mine, but we may add some spacing around it. So I chose to add a little bit of right padding or right margin here to push that away. So at all sizes, it's pushing away 20 pixels. So even in my phone size. And then it has to, when I get really little, it has to actually wrap because it can't fit because of the size of my type. And then it pulls back out. And then I have a little bottom padding margin as well on that. The font weight I decided was 200. Again, you can pick anything. My font size, kind of big. I might like that size. I might want it a little bit smaller, but I've got something in there I can try for now. I did decide I wanted a little bit of a drop shadow, so I chose small horizontal and vertical pixel measurements with a little bit of blurring to make it look feathery, I guess if you want to say that. And I chose a black color because I had white type, so that worked okay. And then again, text transform I did all uppercase. So let's continue on. I also used, if you look at my type here, so the only thing I've done is add so every heading 1 tag, you have to remember when you do something like what I just did, it's a global style for every single heading 1 that you're going to run into. So every heading 1 is going to look like that, okay? And I've got, for me, I've got a heading 3 and a heading 4, so I'm going to style those too. If you want to add a heading 2 and a heading 4, you can do that. So go ahead and, you know, whatever heading levels you have, go ahead and add some more. So for heading next one, so I'll do my little plus sign. It's in my style, global, to affect phone and above. I'm going to add a selector. And I'll go ahead and do a heading 2, and I don't even have a heading 2 on my screen yet, but I'm prepared, you know, when I have a heading 2 for styling. So I'll go ahead and again enter key for the heading 2. I have to uncheck the show set, remember, so that I can see all my properties. So uncheck that. And it's all going to be types of things for the most part. So I want to go to the T area, and they're in little blocks, but go to my T area, and I might want the font size to be 30. So I'll go to pixels and then type a 30. I might want my text transform to be similar. So remember that text transform uppercase, maybe I like that. I may want my font weight to be about the same as my other one, which is 200. So I'll find that same font weight and 200. And again, I have no heading 2 on my screen to see what this is going to look like. So I'm just putting some formatting in here. And then I might want a bottom margin of, you know, 20 to 23 pixels, something like that. So I'm going to go to bottom margin, and I might just do 23. So I'll check my show set just so that you can see. So I did some sort of a margin. The bottom margin, what it's going to do, and especially when you see the welcome to and the capturing, you're going to see space that's increased between. So that's kind of what the bottom margin is serving at this point. I don't have a right margin. So maybe with heading 2, it depends on where I'm going to be using heading 2. So I have not added a right margin at this point. And then just again, a weight, a size, some sort of format. Okay, so let's now add a heading 3. So again, same style, global. And this one I will see because I do have a heading 3. My welcome to is heading 3. So my plus sign, and again, it's a tag. So the class, if it was a class, I would start with a period. Tag is simply H3. And my font size, again, I need to uncheck show set. So the size for my type, go to the T tool again. I'm going to go ahead and do 20 pixels. So we'll go to Pix and 20. And I'm going to do text transform of uppercase. So again, that's kind of consistent. And you should see that on screen. Font weight, I'm going to do 200. Again, that's consistency with my other font weight settings. So it's a little skinnier. My top margin, so this is where you're going to see, because I've maybe, and a little bit maybe on the top, but you're going to see the left or the right and the bottom affected here in just a minute. So top, I might just do 10. Oops, that might be a margin here. 10 pixels. And then I want my right at 20, which would match my right margin for heading 1. So it aligns perfectly. And then the bottom, And again, you're going to probably choose something different, but I have a large margin, 120. So that's a whole bunch of space. So any of your other, I guess the consistency, any of the other heading styles you're using, especially if it's on a main box like this, whether this main box is on every page, maybe slightly different, or just on the home page. But you do have to remember that heading 3 now has a monster bottom margin. So I may choose to make this a class at some point if I don't want heading 3 to look like this for everything. Okay, and then I'm going to add a final one for heading 4. Again, my style global plus for H4. And I want my font size to be a little bit smaller. I'll go to my T again. So I may want pixels, and maybe I'll go 16, less than 20, which was my last one. Text transform, I might want to keep consistent. Again, you can do whatever you'd like to do. I'm going to be consistent on that font weight, so I kind of like a little skinnier character. And my margin right should be consistent. It's going to be 20 pixels. And my margin bottom, again, to separate them out, you can test yours and see what you think. I'm doing 35. And then I'll go to my show set so that you can see my settings there. So I think for, depending upon what your picture is and the type that you have, if I'm looking at the size of, you know, phones, some of the smaller phones might be around 350. Many of them are probably bigger than that. So when I look at, you know, photography, and again, I may leave it there, I may change some settings. So that's my heading 3. I don't know if that helps. So I got rid of the top margin, and I still am pretty close to that light spot. So I may have to do something else. I'll put that back again. You see what I mean? And then as I pull it out, I mean, it gets a little bit better. Obviously here it's way better because it's away from the dog itself. And again here, so I'm wanting to miss his head. That's kind of the most important thing that I guess I'd want to stand out. And then I can see my type. So yours will be different depending upon your image. So I could try with my heading 3. Maybe I could look at a drop shadow of some sort and see if I like it. So maybe I'll do something very similar and just see if that helps. It does stand out a little bit better. I don't know if, you know, you can kind of see the shadow part around it, and maybe I wouldn't even need. I wonder if I do 2 pixels, I don't know. It's kind of something you have to test, and then maybe a 3 pixel blur. What size is what? Physically, I'll open him up in Photoshop and just see, because I can't remember how big he is. And that, can be an issue too with clarity. If you find an image that you like and it's really little and then you stretch it out. Yeah, and I mean, this is, have you ever tried to photograph a running dog? It's really hard. They're super fast, and anyway, I wish I had a better, like a really clean photograph, so especially his eyes. I mean, I think that's where your eyes go, is to the eyes. I wish this part right here was clearer. I don't mind the rest of it being blurry, but anyway, so if I go to image size, he's in pixels about 1500 by 1000, which is screen size. I mean, if these are, what are these, 1680, or there's a lot of them now that are 1900. So there's only so big he can go anyway before he starts to blur out. I have not tried to do any sharpening, you know, especially in that area. I don't know if it would work or not. But anyway, so, you know, I think that the drop shadow helps a little bit on that, but then I've got to look at, is that what I would want my heading 3 to look like everywhere? I don't know. That's where I think, you know, the more you go along within your website, you'll figure that all out. But it helped a lot when I started adding some margin to the bottom especially. So this picture tended to grow at the bigger size. We already, when we were in smaller phone size, we pretty much already saw most of the dog. I can see really the whole dog now, but as you go up, you know, you don't see, then it becomes less and less. I know he's running, and you know, then when I get to the 992, he's still pretty good, but the larger I go, again, there's a trade-off between what's most important. Do I want to see his legs running or just his head and face and get the idea of that's a running dog? So anyway, so let's do a file save all. And again, you can preview it if you want to, you know, right mouse, open in your browser in Chrome, and just to see so far what it looks like, and at your smaller size. I mean, we kind of already know what it looks like because of Dreamweaver, but phone size, that looks actually pretty good. Okay, so far so good. I'm going to skinny up my top there so that you can see. Remember, we added a column or a row and then a column in the main area. So we're going to keep going with that. Should I go on or stop? Does anybody have questions? Question? Do it. Can you? I wonder if it froze. Yeah. Control S. I think it froze. Yeah. It may not save. How much had you done on your cascading style sheets? Okay. And can we get up to? That's really weird. And click to that to save it. Yeah, I think you're going to have to do probably a Control-Alt-Delete. And task manager, see if you can just close Dreamweaver. Yeah, and the task, and then try to come back in. Hopefully it will remember that you have those and cover them. Anybody else have questions on heading 1, 2, 3, 4?
Just the properties on your first class.
Mm-hmm. I'll have to scroll down. So padding, I've got 20 top and left, 30 right, and 100 bottom. Then, and this will change, you know, there's my, there, so color, text align, and then I have an image, and then background size cover needs to be selected. Mm-hmm. What happens if we increase that? Try 250 just for fun, so it's a much more. You could go down a little bit, I think. So this bar, I'd be running into it slightly too. And header, actually, you know what, the header, we have that 32 pixels. So you could even decrease that a little bit at the top. Global. And pull that one down to 10 or something. So that'll probably be all of them done. I think you could try it. Which means then that the header here. Watching that. Does that help some? Yeah. Okay. Okay, did you get that okay, Kendra? Okay. So then you want to make sure that you're in main and that you're after this whole first box. So our first row with a column with the box in it called first and that type. So we want to be one down and we're going to insert a row. So remember you can do dot ROW tab. So dot ROW tab. Or I can also insert a div and call it a row. Okay, and then I want to add some space, so I've got at least a blank space in between my row. And I'm going to go ahead and tab once just for organization so that I'm indenting. And then I want one column, so dot COL tab. And then I'm going to add a little bit of space. But I actually want two columns. So I can do .col again and tab. Okay. Actually, I've got my divs wrong. Let me get rid of that one. I'll correct this and then you can see on screen. Okay, so we want to have div column. I should have just done one enter key and then another one. So move your closing div so that it's one line down. And then we'll put some type here just so you have some filler space. And then we have another column with its closing div just one line down. And then just so we have some placeholder type in there, go ahead and enter key. And I'm going to use heading 2. I haven't used it yet. So we'll see what it looks like and if we like it, and we may need to change it. But heading 1, and maybe for me, because it's about dogs, maybe it's treats. I don't know. And then the next one, I'm going to use again the same heading 2. And this one might be food and water. So maybe I have pictures of them eating treats. I don't know. And drinking food and water. Or water bowls. And if we do a file save all, and I look at, so my default, I didn't change the color. So remember how most everything else, let's see, my first box. Heading 1, I think, wasn't it white? Oh, you know what? I did it. Okay. The color in my first box. So this will make sense now. Anything that's inside first is going to have a type color of white or whatever you picked. If it's outside of first, so even if I did, and I'll just try heading 1 here, and I'll save it and come back here. So it's black. Does that make sense? So to try to separate those two out so that all my heading 1s weren't white, all my heading 2s weren't white, I just identified first box as white. Okay, so I'll change that back again because I don't want that. Heading 2. Anyway, so we have basically, so let me scroll down here. We have 2 columns. We're 1 row and 2 columns. We haven't designated that each one is only 50% width yet, so they're just stacking. They're going 100%. Remember that column class we had? And we said width of 100%. So we were telling our columns to span 100% of our width. So we'll have to set some other parameters here so that ideally, if I were reviewing this here, and I'll go back again, ideally, if treats was, say, a box that was supposed to be half of the first picture, food and water was supposed to be another box that was the other half, and then as I skinnied it up, then of course those would start to probably wrap at some point so that they're on top of one another. But at a larger screen, it'd be really great if they could stretch out and, you know, become one row. Okay. So we have, and you can see it's a 1 row. So when you go back to your tags here, your code, it's a 1 row with 2 columns inside. So as far as your nesting, if you click on row itself, it'll highlight both treats and food and water. But each column is separate. Okay, so at global size, I think it would be appropriate again, so anything under the 768, it would be appropriate for them to stack one on top of the other. But I think anything that's above the 768, depending upon what I have in there, obviously, but I'd probably want it to start wrapping. Actually, we'll do at, yep, tablet and above. Okay, so we'll want to make sure that our column floats left, and then we'll add some padding all around our column as well. So far so good. Do we have 2 columns with something, some sort of type? Okay. So in your style, you want to click the min width 768. And we don't have a column property here. We do at global, we have a column property of just 100% width, but we don't have one yet at 768. So that's what we're about to do, okay? So again, global 768, we're going to add a selector called .col. And then enter key, maybe twice, enter key. So you'll have 2, and we'll look at our cascading style sheet here in just a minute, because you will have 2 column classes, but they are going to be separated by the global group versus the tablet group or above. So uncheck your show set, and we'll have it float left, and the float is below position, I think is where that's at. So I'll tell it to float left. And then padding at the top, we're going to do, so I'll have to scroll up just a little bit here. Padding, I want it to be at 0 pixels, so I can click on it and type a 0 there. Left and right, I want it to be 7 pixels, so 7 at the left, enter key. 7 at the right, enter key. And you might notice that just a little bit, your box pulled in, because first is a part of column. So that's within columns at this size, by the way. Bottom, let's do 14. And again, this is kind of based on, you know, what I've got going. Yours might be different, but you kind of get the gist of it. So and let's see what happens. So I'm going to do a file save all, and I'm going to come to my Chrome page, do a refresh. So what happened at our little screen, there's really not, so remember the global, the 100% width call is being applied because there is no padding or margins left and right. But then when and you can't really see when I get to 768 because I can in Dreamweaver, but I can't here. So as I start pulling out, pretty soon you're going to see, oh, okay, now I've got the 7 left, 7 right pixels. Same thing, so it's tablet and above. That's exactly where that happens. It's tablet and above. So right around there is about 768. Okay. Then we're going to tell it to do some wrapping. So I'm going to come back here again. And we're going to create, so this will be same thing. I'm still in my styles. I'm still at 768. And I want to create a new selector. So another plus sign. And this one is going to be .col. And again, what you call it is what you want to call it. I'm just, for my purposes and to help me remember. But again, if you want to spell it differently, you can. So it's a column that's medium 1/2. So it's a medium-sized column, really, or for a medium-sized screen. So MD for medium. I'll do a hyphen. MD for the medium. And then 1. So I'm actually spelling out 1. Because you can't do like 1/2, like a half. Can't put figures in. So anyway, because it's weird characters. They have to be all normal characters. So 1-1/2. So .col for medium screen 1/2. And then I have to enter that to accept it. I'm only just going to add a width property. So be sure you uncheck show set if you need to. It's going to be a %, and it's at 50%. So the only thing I did was add 50% width. And then do a file save all. come back to your screen, refresh. Nothing happens yet because we haven't applied the new name. So only the .col has been applied so far. And notice again, so it's only going to affect 768 and above. So what will happen with those two, you'll see in just a sec here. Okay, so again, make sure that I want to check that you're in the right area when you apply this. So make sure that you've left the first row alone. That's the one with call first, welcome to, da 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 da. So our new group is what we're concentrated on. So I want to be in the area between the row where you have two columns, and I want to go to the class for column. Okay, and this is a little bit weird, at least when you first think of it, it's a little bit weird, but you add a space after call, so it helps me out here, and I'll put it right on screen here. The reason why we have two calls, really, because if I'm at global size screen, the 100% width has to be applied. So I've got a class first at global, do 100%. If I'm at larger than tablet, 768 and above, I want it to apply call medium 1/2. And I'm going to do the same thing here. So space, and it helps us out. And hopefully you see some change. We'll do a file save all. And again, I can, come here, do a refresh. And there is a point, so it's the same 768 breaking point. So they float down below one another. And when it's above, then they float left of one another. Remember how we've done the nav bar? We floated things left of one another. So that's what's going on there as well. Did that work? And then there's also another selector that we'll have to add to. So we'll do that one. And this is a row after. We're going to display table, clear both, and all content so that it clears itself and displays everything else normally. So that's the extra little deal we're going to add here. You want to be sure that you're at global on this one. So I'm in my style, I'm at global, and I'm going to add a selector, plus sign. And this one is going to be a dot, so start with dot, ROW, and then type a colon. So that's your shift colon. And I'm not seeing after, we'll type after. Oh, there it is way at the bottom. So if you scroll, when you type the colon, if you scroll all the way down, you'll see after. So that's what it's going to be called. And then you can enter key. And we should be able to then, property display will be in table format. So display is table. And then I want to go down to clear, and that's a little bit down here. So remember where float was? Clear is one below that. Clearing both, it looks like an eyeball with a nose, two eyeballs with a nose. I don't know if that makes any sense, but there's two blocks, and then, so it's clearing both. And then this is one that we have not seen yet. So if you go all the way down, do you see where there's more? So I actually want to add my own. So we're going to click inside that box and then type the word content. And it probably helps you out. So you can see it finds content. And then when you get to the extra box, you want just two quotes. Shift, quote, quote. And then enter key. So for row colon after, it's table display, clearing both, content, everything. So after rows, it will display everything in normal format below that. If that makes any sense? And when you click, so in Dreamweaver, when you click on treats or you click on food, you'll see, you know, each one is a separate little cell. When you click on the row, then you see, you know, the whole thing together. So that kind of helps with where things are located. I don't know if you noticed the same thing. So I think we talked about the document object model as well as the status bar right here. So the document object model is called the DOM, and I closed mine out. Remember, that was on our panel. But again, the same thing here. If I click body, I'm selecting everything within the body. If I go back, so I'll click, I guess I'll click here again. I can select only the main group. So it just helps as far as organization, where I'm at, what if I want to affect this, or if I've got a problem, what is being affected by this area. My div, my row, my column medium half. So we should probably style some little boxes just so that, you know, you've got something going on there. And we're good with time still. Let's see. Let me do that. Okay. Oops. And again, what you call your boxes will be different, but we'll just create something so you've got some color, something to kind of put behind there. So in your style, global again, let's do a new class, so selector plus, and this is it's going to be color, so it's like a color coordination, and it's, for me, it's one of my information boxes, but again, what you call it is something, could be different for you, and you can go back and rename these, so that's really easy to do, especially in the cascading style sheet. But when you do go to rename, so if I rename my call medium 1/2 and I just want to call it call med half, something like that, I want to make sure that I not only rename it here and maybe change properties, but I have to go back and make sure my class is correct, if that makes sense too. Okay, so this one's going to be dot and then info hyphen box, so I know it's an information box. And maybe this one for me is going to be a tan color. So dot info hyphen box hyphen tan. And enter. And actually, so that you can see what's going on, let's go add the div here, because then as you apply color and all that good stuff, you'll kind of see. So I want it to be, I think I want it to be there, don't I? Yeah, so I want it to be one. So you want to go after your call medium 1/2, and then we'll just add a div. We'll hand add our div here. Div space class equals, and then we start our quote. And there's my little box, or so info box tan, and then I'll end my little div there, and then I need to end my div here. And I might move that, just tab it in. Oh, there already was a div. Oops. It filled it in for me. It auto, you know how that goes, which is really nice of it, but okay. So you've got your row, which we had, and then you've got your first column, or first cell, basically, that's half, and it's treats for me, whatever the name is for you. I've created a div class called InfoBox10 for treats, and then we'll style it and see what it looks like, just so that you've got the screen and the style as we go. Okay, so again, with our global InfoBox10, we may want to go pick a background color. So we can go back down and we'll see BG color. It's kind of a ways down here. So BG color. I think you can even type in tan. Or beige or brown. I'll do a brown one next. I can also, so maybe I don't really like that color. I may want to do an eyedropper. I may want to pick a tan color that's actually from my dog. So if I go back to that BG color again, and I click on it, remember the little eyedropper that you automatically get, or click to get, and then you can kind of roll around, and maybe I find one near his ear, something like that. That might be my tan that I'm wanting, and then okay to that. So it's a very slight change, but you can pick what you like until you're happy with it. I don't know if I like that either. On what? It's probably somewhere else. So let's go to low class. Let's click on div. Okay. And then click on that. Okay, that's, and that one's there. Nope, you're okay. Oh, it needs one there. Into a possible. That looks like that was. There's not. Wrap? Yeah, it
Okay.
doesn't go,
I'm gonna move it.
okay,
So
let's go to, click on div. Yep. Okay, and then click on your div class call. And then here. Okay. It is our choose only one, so you've got that div, closing that one there. And it's there, and it's call medium 1/2, 50%.
Yeah.
Maybe it has to, the second one has to be, I don't know.
And did you do the row after one too? Yep. Do both. So mine was doing that too, but what I was doing was the whole thing was not in, but yours is in one row. Oh, I wonder if you're missing a div.
That's what I'm thinking, maybe there's, maybe a div above it, or.
I think that giving us some error, though.
Yeah.
No, we're not missing it there. There's only that one. That one, that one, that one, that one. I may have to look at yours maybe after class and see. Yeah, I might have to spend some time on that one. But yours doing the same thing. Yeah. So the global, go to your global column, and it's 100%. Yeah, and your global column is 100%, is that right? And then just the 768 is the 50%. Do a global, you have a column. Yep. And that's 100%. I would undo the float. So just take that off. Yeah, trash can. And then file save all. And I don't suppose that probably did anything. I may have to look at both of yours before class is over, so we're just when class is over. Yeah, we'll color the box just a little bit more, add other elements. And then your type color. So again, you can go to your, oops. So the type area, and I can change the color to something. If I want white with this particular box, I can do a white. I can add padding, move it away from the box. So same thing, I'd go to padding, and maybe I'd want top. I can, just test this out, 30 pixels. Maybe the bottom I want 60 pixels, and again, you may change things. I might want padding at the left and right of the same thing. If I happen to have, well, I wouldn't really need probably padding at the right because I don't have type that's over there right at the moment, so I'd probably be okay. Can always come back with that one. I could, if I wanted to text align center, I can leave it at the left and it would be padded away a little bit from the box. The box height itself, so it's kind of a little box. I can force a size if I want to with height in pixels, and I could go 300, I could go 350, so you can choose whatever height, and again, that height is going to stay, so I may not want it to be that large unless I had a bunch of stuff in there. Maybe I want it to be 250, 150. Depends on what else I put in there. I may have pictures that I want to throw in. And then the food and water, I might want brown. So info box brown. So we'll do a global style, same thing, .info hyphen box hyphen brown. And I might do some similar types of settings. Again, I can choose my background color. So I'll go to the BG color here. I can type something in. So there's, saddle brown. Yeah, may not be finding it with 2 words. There it is. So I can find it with 1 word. I can also eyedropper him and find color according to the dog. And maybe I'm happy with that. And my type color, same thing. I might want to be consistent with that and go white. And I may do the same padding. It won't change color yet. because did we do, oh, we did 60 picks. We haven't applied the cascading style sheet yet. Height, picks, I can't remember if it was 150, but I think so. Then to apply, so remember, similar to, I'll squishy this up again. So similar to what we did here, I want to add between my medium call half and my food and water, I want to add a class. So div class equals the info box brown, and close it up, gives me my div. So then I can control X and move my div there. So I think that's consistent on everything. So I think I'll stop there today. I'm going to go ahead and do a file save all and stop my recording.